a new day. It's a new adventure. It is once again an orange suit. Welcome to the Orange Suit Guy show here on YouTube. I am Kyle Allen, the Orange Suit Guy. This, as I've said before, but not for a while, is my life on camera shared with you. I get to step away from being a journalist. I get to step away from being a radio host. I get to step away from all of that. And I get to put on the old colors, relive the glory days, and hopefully be a little bit entertaining while I'm here. It's time to start off by addressing a little bit of an elephant in the room. Nobody likes elephants in the room, but they're there, right? The last time that I was with you guys, the last time that I was here on this show, I was teasing a special episode. That episode, the last one that you saw, was in November of 2025. I had every plan for the next episode to feature a special guest. I had the next idea all planned out, and then it never happened. It never, ever materialized, and that's how life goes sometimes. Then I came back last semester at Oklahoma State and tried a couple of different times to film an episode, and every time I tried, there was an equipment problem, and it just was outside of my control, and it didn't happen. So at the end of the fall semester last year, there were just some things that happened in my life that were much more important, in all honesty, than filming a podcast, filming a TV show, things that I needed to deal with, things that we don't have time or energy on this show to really get into. But those things, I'm not going to say they're gone. I'm not going to say they're fully dealt with, but they're in a spot where I feel comfortable coming back behind the camera. If you follow my life on socials and anything like that, I am no stranger at this point to being behind the camera, but there was always one show, the show that started it all, the OSG, the Orange Suit Guy show, that I knew needed to come back. Like I said, I tried it a couple of times last semester, and for whatever reason, it just didn't happen. For whatever reason, it just wasn't there. The audio wouldn't work, a camera wouldn't work, a light wouldn't work, something wouldn't work, and it was just never in the cards. But here we are. I'm actually recording this on July 4th. Happy 250th birthday to the United States of America, and it's almost happy 33rd birthday to yours truly. That brings me to some housekeeping here with the Orange Suit Guy show. As you know, in the past, we've started this show with the first block being kind of a recap of whatever's happening in the world of Oklahoma State sports. Well, the bad part about starting this in July is there's absolutely nothing happening in the world of Oklahoma State sports. There is no current news to report on, so we're going to do something different from here on out on the Orange Suit Guy show, because I also have a couple of other shows that you can go see where I talk about Oklahoma State athletics and talk about the things that are happening, and I want to mix it up a little bit. I want to talk about more things than that. There are more things in my life than Oklahoma State athletics. I know that sounds rich from a guy in a bright orange jacket and a cowboy hat, but it's true. And actually, this first segment, this opening little bit, if you've watched any of the late night talk shows, they kind of start their show off with a little bit of a monologue, a little bit of a skit, if you will. Maybe that's what we're going for, maybe it's not, but it's going to kind of be the vibe where I'm just going to kind of tell you some stories. Stories of my life, both as Kyle Allen and as the Orange Suit Guy, and where better to start than the first appearance of the orange suit. When I bought this suit, I did not realize just how vibrant this suit was, and it comes with pants, it comes with a tie. I didn't realize that if I wore this jacket and I walked into a room with white walls and a light shined on me, that it would change the color of the walls. I didn't realize that that's what was in store for the orange suit. And this was back in the year 2021. And I decided, you know what I want to do? Something I've always wanted to do is go to more road games. as an Oklahoma State fan. I love going to games at Boone Pickens Stadium. I love going to games at Gallagher-Iba Arena. I love going to games at O'Brate Stadium, at Cowgirl Stadium, at Neil Patterson Stadium. I love going to all of them as often as I get the opportunity. And thankfully, I'm blessed enough with my line of work to be given that opportunity often. But now that's in an official capacity. This was back when it was just as a fan. And I said, where do I want to start going specifically to more road games? If you remember 2021 Cowboy football, we played Boise State that year up in Boise, Idaho. And that stadium in Boise had always been on my bucket list of stadiums. It was always a place that I wanted to visit, not because the stadium's huge, not because the stadium's elaborate, not because there's a ton of history with the stadium. Albertson Stadium is a concrete bowl in the middle of Idaho. There's nothing outstanding about it from the outside. I do love Boise State fans. A couple of years prior to that, they had come to Stillwater and played a game down here, and they were phenomenal. Some of the best fans I have ever interacted with from a visiting fan base, and they've always had that reputation. Boise State fans have always been a fan base that people speak really, really highly of. And I said, yeah, I had a great time with them in 2019 here in Stillwater. I want to go up to Boise and see how they do it up there, because you know what they do in Boise? They do blue turf. They were the progenitors of unusual turf colors. It's in a few different places now in the world of athletics, but it started in Boise, Idaho, and I had watched so many games on TV from the blue turf of Boise, Idaho, and I said, this may be the only chance that I get to go experience a game that I'm invested in as a fan at Albertson Stadium. I feel like I would be doing myself a disservice to not go explore that. And so that's what I did. I drove 21 hours over the course of 2 days. One of the most eventful road trips I have ever had, going to Boise, Idaho. I drove to western Wyoming, 15 hours of drive time the first day. By the time I got to my hotel in Rock Springs, Wyoming, I didn't know what planet I was on. I was so tired. I had forgotten how to walk. I couldn't speak. I was just beyond exhausted and done with the day. I went and ordered food at a Taco Bell, and they probably thought that I was on some substance that they hadn't even discovered yet in Rock Springs, Wyoming. And then the next day, I get back in the car and I drive to an Airbnb right outside of Boise in Meridian, Idaho. And I had packed a few different outfits for the game because I didn't know what the weather was going to do. I looked at all the weather apps. I looked at all the radars. But I wanted to play it a couple of different ways. I didn't know how cold it was going to be. Plus, if Boise, Idaho says 58 degrees, I don't know if that 58 feels like a 58 in Stillwater, Oklahoma. You're up in some mountain area. No idea. So my bag is filled with various pieces of Oklahoma State clothing. One of those things was this suit. I said, if I get the opportunity, if I get the chance, maybe I'll wear this. If I get the chance, maybe I'll wear this to the game. And I stepped outside of that Airbnb that I was staying in. I talked to the woman whose house it was that she was letting me stay in for that weekend. Great old woman. And it felt phenomenal. It felt phenomenal outside. It wasn't windy. I knew the game was going to be late, but it was supposed to stay pretty warm. I mean, the game was in September. And I said, I'm doing it. And I put my boots on, and I put the orange suit on, and I put this hat on. And at the time, and if I can find some photos, maybe I'll put some photos in. But at the time, my hair was orange. I had colored my hair orange. And so if I took off the hat, and I'm not going to do it now because my hair is nothing but an unkempt mess right now. But at the time, it was all orange under there. It was kind of like a little party trick. Oh, you don't think I'm wearing enough orange? You don't think the suit is bright enough? How about this? And I take the hat off, and there's orange hair underneath it. I might see if I can find some of those photos and put those in for you. Future Kyle, good job if you did that. But it was a hit. I got there, and by luck, there was a lot of Oklahoma State fans there who I think probably went for the same reason that I did, and it was just This isn't something that we see very often. This isn't something that happens very often. We don't get the chance to go to a place like Boise State. And Oklahoma State at the time traveled notoriously well. So I got to the stadium, I parked my car, and I walked right past an Oklahoma State tailgate. It was the first group of people that I encountered was an Oklahoma State tailgate group. And they gave me some food, and I hung out with them. I took a couple of pictures. It was the first time in my life that somebody had taken a picture of me for wearing kind of an outlandish suit. I know that sounds weird. If you followed my life, you know that I am no stranger to different outlandish outfits, and I've definitely had pictures taken in the past, in various get-ups, but like this one felt different. This felt almost like I was developing an alter ego, what we know now as the orange suit guy. I walk out of this parking garage, I start walking down the street going towards Albertson Stadium, and the thing is with Boise State, they're known for blue, but their secondary color is orange. So I kind of blended in a little bit, as weird as that is, because I stand out in Stillwater. Or I did. I don't get the chance to wear this to games at Boone Pickens anymore because I'm working them. But I wore it to several Oklahoma State games, and I stood out even in a sea of orange. So now you're putting me in a spot where it's blue and orange. There's this color mix. And people are kind of giving me pause to think for just a second and being like, that looks Oklahoma State, but we've got orange. Maybe it's Boise State. We don't know. Eventually they would figure it out that it was not Boise State orange. It was Oklahoma State orange, but was given a red carpet the whole way there. All of the tailgating at Albertson Stadium happens in one big parking lot right outside of Albertson Stadium. And you have to walk through this parking lot to get to the security gates to get wherever you're going. I walked through this crowd of people and everybody, I mean, I couldn't go 20 yards without somebody grabbing me, wanting to take a picture, handed me a beer, handed me a hot dog or a cheeseburger. I was full of food, and I was maybe more than a little bit drunk by the time I got to the gate, because I'd probably, and it with no exaggeration, I'd probably had a case of beers. I'd probably had a case of beers with these fans in Idaho. I'd probably had 4 or 5 hot dogs. I'd had 2 cheeseburgers. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was treated really, really well while I was up there. Even if somebody was just like, here's a plastic little Dixie bowl full of Doritos. Hey, thank you. Awesome. I appreciate that. And then there was some banter back and forth, and I love good-natured, friendly sports banter. I love it. They knew how to do it. There was one particular student at Boise State who was not very good at it and was just screaming at me, but whatever. It is what it is. Now you're in a story, random anonymous woman from Boise State whose name I never even attempted to learn. But it occurred to me, I had stayed out there so long, I almost missed kickoff for the game because I was just hanging out in the parking lot, having a blast of a time, and ended up two Boise State fans got my attention because there was still a line of people trying to get in through the first gate. They took me around the stadium to a secondary gate where there was no line. I got in, I went to my seat, got sat down, had a great time. Obviously, it was an incredible football game, a weird football game, if you remember that one at all. Oklahoma State ends up winning that one 21-20. There's no points in the second half. Jalen Warren has a really good day on the ground. We basically don't throw the ball for the entirety of the second half outside of Cale Cabanis making a catch on the sideline to seal the game. A controversial fumble call that went in Oklahoma State's favor. A controversial roughing the passer call that went in Boise State's favor, and then we win it on a partially blocked field goal. A bonkers game up in Boise. And then I went back to my Airbnb, had another great conversation with the woman who I was staying with, and I went home, had a great night's sleep, and I came back to Oklahoma. And from that moment, I decided, hey, you know what? I think this is it. I think this is going to be what I do. I think when I go to games now, I think we're looking at Orange Suit Guy. I think I'm just going to wear this to different games. And it actually, as it stands, and I'll tell this story on the next show, I went to one more road game before I ever wore this at home. I didn't wear this at home in the 2021 season. That wasn't until 2022 that it actually made an appearance inside Boone Pickens Stadium. It was almost exclusively for road games. And then 2022 happened. I wore it to every game that I went to after that as a fan, before I left my abilities to do that because I came into the media and now work in the press box and have to be in an official capacity. But there, if you were ever wondering about the origin story of Orange Suit Guy, it's right there. And so now we're going to go back into the segments that you know from this show. We're kind of reinventing the show, reintroducing the show. Maybe this is season 2 of the show, if you will. But we're going to go back into the Orange archive now. And there's going to be a lot of football games coming up in the near future on this show that we're going to feature on the archive. This one, we're going to stay in basketball one more time. I preface this with saying, keep in mind, I wrote this episode of the show in January, maybe February, when I wrote this episode of the show. I've been trying to record this episode for months, but it's all going to happen now, and I'm just leaving a lot of it, and this is a great basketball game, so stick around. Orange Archive is up next, and we'll talk about a trip, one of my favorites, to the White Maple of Gallagher-Iba Arena, so stay tuned. Orange Archive here with the Orange Suit Guy show as promised, and we are making a trip 21 years ago today, and that sounds ridiculous to say even to me because I remember this game vividly. I remember it like it was yesterday. One of the most fun games I have ever seen. I was watching this one on TV. I was not in Stillwater at the time. This is in 2005. Sean Sutton's first season, with Cowboy basketball. This was a great team performance, one of the best team performances I have ever seen. See, I say I remember this game like it was yesterday, and I immediately forget something about it, but that's fine. That's neither here nor there. This is a segment of time where Oklahoma State basketball was kind of in a transitional period, but was still really, really hot, especially at home. And somebody came into Gallagher-Iba Arena that night who became a fan favorite in the state of Oklahoma, down in Oklahoma City, and then became public enemy number 1, and honestly is still kind of a polarizing figure within the world of Oklahoma City sports. That's Kevin Durant and the Texas Longhorns. This is the 105-103 triple overtime win for Oklahoma State over the Texas Longhorns in 2005 from Gallagher-Iba Arena. I think a lot of people, when they think of this game, if they were watching Oklahoma State basketball at the time, or if they've watched highlight reels since then, what they remember is one shot. There's a shot in this game that has lived beyond everything else. It has created a legacy all its own, and that's Byron Eaton throwing one circus shot from midcourt as the shot clock's expiring. The possession looks like it's over. The ball's thrown away, and Byron just throws one towards the rim because the shot clock didn't expire if he doesn't, and he nails it. And the crowd went nuts, and it was just kind of that night for Oklahoma State. Every time a Texas player, Kevin Durant or otherwise, threw a punch, Oklahoma State had a counterpunch for it. It didn't come from one player. It didn't come from one area. Byron Eaton in that game only finished with 11 points and has the play that everybody wants to talk about for the rest of time within this game. People don't remember the game-winning three-pointer. I say game-winning. There was a few seconds on the clock. It wasn't a buzzer beater. There was a few seconds on the clock afterward, and Oklahoma State gets a defensive stop and doesn't allow Texas to score and gets the win on their home court. That game-winning three-pointer was hit by Mario Bogan. Mario Bogan went nuts in that game. He was not a good three-point shooter, but he was the hot hand all day. He finished with 37 and 20 that day. I want you, if you're a basketball fan, to wrap your mind around 37 and 20. Yes, it was triple overtime, for sure. Great. But 37 and 20. I've seen players that have put up 20 rebounds. I've seen a ton of players put up 37 points. That feels like it's nothing anymore. But 37 and 20 as a triple double, or as a double double, excuse me. He almost had a triple double, but couldn't quite get there. James Curry, one of the greatest names in the history of Cowboy basketball. Mind the capital letter, mind that capital O in the middle of the name. He had 28. Terrell Harris had 16. It was one of those games that, like I said, anytime Texas had a punch, Oklahoma State had a counter punch. Mario Bogan, not a good three-point shooter. Not good. Really, probably in any other circumstance, if he's not shooting as hot as he is in that game, he's not someone that you want taking that shot in that situation. But he's, again, finishes with 37 and 20. He had 34 to that point. I can do that math. 34 plus 3 is 37. Have him take that shot. Even as a bad statistical three-pointer, he had the hot hand and he knocked it down. Take that, analytics nerds. Who cares? The guy with the hot hand knocks down the shot. And you beat the man who realistically should have been the number 1 pick in the NBA draft that year, was number 2 pick in the NBA draft, and it benefited the Oklahoma City Thunder greatly because the Supersonics got to take him at number 2 because Portland took Greg Oden out of Ohio State before him, and Greg Oden, I think, would have been a generational player had he been able to stay healthy. It's a different story for a different day. But with all of the ups and downs that we've seen from Cowboy basketball ever since that 2004 Final Four season, so I guess this was Eddie Sutton. I'll correct myself again. In 2005, this would have been Eddie's last year. Sean would have taken over in 06. There's the timeline. I knew it would get there. That as up and down as this program has been since then, it brings me so much joy to go back and watch games like this, because I was a kid when this happened. 2005, this would have been right before my 12th birthday. I was right in the heart of committing my heart and soul to Oklahoma State at that point. I'd already done it, really, but this was even beyond that I knew I was going to be an Oklahoma State guy. I knew I was going to be Oklahoma State forever. Even before I came up here, even before I ever put on an orange jacket, I knew I was Oklahoma State to the core. And this is one of those games. There's a reason that I remember it as well as I do, and it's just because it's one of those games that you don't forget. Any point in time, you can remember something about this game. Even from bad Oklahoma State teams, there's usually times throughout the season where you'll remember a clip, you'll remember a play, you'll remember a player, you'll remember something that happened. This 05 team, I think, went to the Sweet 16, and it was kind of the last really, really good team I want to say that Oklahoma State had. We had some really good players since then, but the last really, really good team that we had making that Sweet 16 run. And I remember so much about that team and about that game. And if you go back and look at clips from it, and you just see the excitement and the energy in Gallagher-Iba, it will energize you. It'll get you ready to see Cowboy and Cowgirl basketball get back to that spot, because I know they're capable of it, and I think they know they're capable of it. It's just a matter of being able to get them there. That's the next big hurdle, but that's where I wanted to spend some time in the archive, just kind of talking about one of my favorite memories with Cowboy basketball. And since the opening segment went really, really long, if we're going to keep this anywhere close to the time that we need to, we're going to end that segment there, and we're going to transition away from the world of sports, because, again, there's more to my life than sports. It's a big part of my life. It's part of my life that I love. But we're going to go into the other major thing that I love to talk about, which is music. And we've got some special rules this week, again, because of the circumstances and what we're doing. But Orange Jams is next. As usual, we'll have a current release and a throwback, and they're both really, really fun. They kind of tie in together in an indirect way that was not intentional, and then we'll go on from there. So stick around for Orange Jams right after this. Orange Jams James on the Orange Suit Guy show, and we are finally back to talk some music, and I am beyond excited for it. That being said, again, you know how this used to work, right? I would try my hardest to find a new release, listen to it, either love it or not like it, and then bring it to you on this show to hopefully expand your musical catalog, expand your library, and expand your love for rock and metal music, because that's where my heart is. And I guess in a way, I'm bending the rules on this one because again, I wrote this episode months ago. And I said, Kyle, it would be really simple. Even if you wanted to keep the basketball game that you talked about, you can pick a bunch of other albums. There's albums that come out every week. You can find something. And I just got in this argument with myself and I said, no, I can't do that because I really, really, really want to talk about this record because I really like this record. And it's going to technically make some history on this show because the only time we have ever featured an American band on Orange Jams, it was in a throwback segment. When we talked about Use Your Illusion by Guns N' Roses. We've never done that for the current release, for the new release. So why not, on the 4th of July, talk about an American band? And that band is one of my favorites. That band is called Alter Bridge, and they put out a self-titled record earlier this year now through Napalm Records. And I was a little bit worried about this record, if I'm being honest. I've been worried about the trajectory of Alter Bridge since they joined Napalm. Napalm is a great record label if you're into metal music. Alter Bridge is not quite as heavy as a lot of bands on Napalm Records, and I was just kind of really curious about how they might fit in or not fit into the rest of the Napalm family. This is their third album as a Napalm Records artist, following Walk the Sky and Pawns and Kings, which, if I'm being real, were probably my two least favorite records they ever put out. They had some good songs. By all means, they had some really, really good songs on them, but overall, I didn't think those albums were very strong. Before then, I would have told you AB3 was that record, their third album, and I think they would have probably told you that. There's a reason that only one of those songs, the song Isolation, is the only track from that record that stays in their set list on a live show, and it's easily the best song on the record. I was really worried. I said, I don't think that Alter Bridge is losing it because they definitely are still putting out good songs. I don't know if they have the ability to put out a truly great record anymore. Thankfully, I don't think this is a great record, but I think it's the best one of the three that they've put out on Napalm. This song, or this record, excuse me, it's kind of a return to form for Alter Bridge in a lot of ways. And if you don't know the band Alter Bridge, I'm going to kind of run through it a little bit here for you. In my opinion, you absolutely should. They've been around for 20 years now. You'll for sure know the band that came before Alter Bridge, the band that allowed Alter Bridge to exist, because that band is Creed. Again, it feels weirdly appropriate to mention Creed on the 4th of July. They are America's favorite band now. When Creed split, following the Weathered record, I think that was 02 or 03, the members of Creed, minus Scott Stapp, got together and started making more music. And they brought in a man named Miles Kennedy to be the singer of their new band called One Day Remains. They end up changing the name of that band to Alter Bridge, and One Day Remains becomes the name of the first record that the band put out. And after that record, and I like that record, don't get me wrong, but it sounds like a Creed record. They were definitely still trying to sound like Creed. Miles Kennedy has much more talent than Scott Stapp does, and I like Creed. I'm a Creed fan. You're going to hear me turn up Creed every time I get the opportunity, right? But the thing with Alter Bridge is once they allowed Miles Kennedy to kind of start helping out in the writing process, doing more and more and more with the guitar and showing off his vocal abilities, they put out the Blackbird record, which a lot of people will still say is their best record. They put out AB3, they put out Fortress, they put out The Last Hero, and now they're all the way down the road with a self-title here on Napalm Records, and they are going strong. They are a band that I've seen multiple times. They came through Oklahoma this past spring. I wasn't able to get to that show, unfortunately. Had some friends who went, said that as usual it was a great live show, one of the best live bands that you'll see. I mean, they bring it. I've seen them multiple times. The reason that I have tinnitus in my right ear is because of an Alter Bridge concert, and I have no regrets about it. I have no hard feelings about it. I had the time of my life at that show. I just paid a dear consequence for it. The promotional singles for this record, and I think one of them, and I didn't think to look this up. I think the song "Silent Divide" is their current live opener in their set list, and that makes sense. A lot of times you'll do that with a song that's off the album that you're touring to promote. Silent Divide is a really, really good song. It's a great way to start the trajectory of the record. I don't think it's the best song on the record. I really don't. We'll get into that here in a little bit when I get into the highlight tracks, the tracks that I want to recommend to listeners of the album. But Silent Divide is a promotional single. If you had qualms about the record, if you had reservations about, oh, how good is this record going to be, Silent Divide would have immediately taken care of that, because Silent Divide is a phenomenal record, or phenomenal single, excuse me. And I think they made the right choice, even though I don't think it's the best song on the record. It was easily the best choice for the first promotional single for it. And then they put out a single, and this is where I'll get into those highlight tracks. They put out a single called Playing Aces. Playing Aces, as it turns out, is my second favorite track off of this record. Loved that song. I remember the first time that I listened to it, when they put it out. As soon as the song was over and I had my headphones on, I took my headphones off, and I remember just yelling because I had so much just energy built up inside of me that needed to find a way out somewhere, that I just unleashed it. And I don't do that often because I listen to so much music that it's not that it takes a lot for me to appreciate music. It takes very little for me to appreciate music. But to get an actual physical reaction out of me, it requires something. And I think Playing Aces had that, because I just had to get the energy out at a certain point. When you look at the other track that I have highlighted with this, and keep in mind, as good as I think Silent Divide is, as good as I think Playing Aces is, as good as I think the other highlighted track that I'm going to talk about is, I don't think any of their all-time greats as far as songs go are on this record. When you look at the career that Alter Bridge has had, and you listen to songs like, in my opinion, Godspeed, one of their best ones, which is off one of their new records, Silver Tongue, another one from those records, go back and play Blackbird, Watch Over You, go back and play Addicted to Pain, or Rise Today, or Metalingus if you're a professional wrestling fan. That song's a great song to hear live, which has been Edge, Adam Copeland's entrance song across companies now for many, many years. Uh, I don't think that there's a song on that level on this record, but Playing Aces is where I would start, and then a song called Rue the Day is where I would go next. And Rue the Day, I'm going to say this in a way that may not make a whole lot of sense to anybody who's not living inside my brain, but in January, I put out a couple of songs under my own one of my own monikers, and one of those songs that I put out was the angriest song I have ever written, and there was a lot that got channeled into that song. It's still the angriest song that I have ever written, and I still, like, I'm proud of that song. But Rue the Day really kind of took the message behind the song that I wrote and really took it to the next level. Now, Miles Kennedy and I do not know each other. Mark Tremonti, their guitar player and co-writer that I know that is in Alter Bridge, we don't know each other. We've never spoken to each other. So I'm not saying that they took a song from Kyle Allen. They certainly did not. And in a lot of ways, I'm upset that I didn't write a better song after I heard Rue the Day. And now, I'm not Miles Kennedy as a singer, as a guitar player, or as a songwriter. I don't get to work with Mark Tremonti. I don't get to work with an expert engineering team and production team to make these songs what they are. But Rue the Day, for just as righteously pissed off a song as it is, and it's a song that I still go back to. I just get in that mindset of, I go back to some things, and I just need to channel some anger. I just need to channel some negativity and get it out of me. Rue the Day is one of the first songs that I play. It is a phenomenal song for something like that. And it's a song that has stayed on my playlist since I first heard it. As good as I think Playing Aces is, as good as I think Silent Divide is, I don't think Rue the Day will ever be a single, but as an album cut, it's fantastic. So those are the songs that I've highlighted: Silent Divide, Playing Aces, and Rue the Day from the self-titled Alter Bridge record. Cannot get enough of it. Cannot get enough of it. I think it's great. And with me saying that it's not one of the stronger Alter Bridge records, that means Alter Bridge has had some really strong records for people to go back and check out, and I encourage it. Even AB3, even Walk the Sky, even Pawns and Kings, which I think are all three their collective weakest records, still really bright spots on all of those records. And the self-title, much in that same vein. Check out the self-titled record from Alter Bridge if you haven't. Now, when we go into our throwback, we get one that's really, really fun. And I chose this one for a specific reason. And I said that it's connected to Alter Bridge in an inauspicious way, in an unintentional way. But I chose it because this year, this record turns 25 years old, a quarter of a century. This record came out in 2001. This is the second record as a solo for Mr. Rob Zombie on Geffen Records. This is The Sinister Urge. Again, comes out in 2001. And again, not his best work, because Hellbilly Deluxe was not only an incredible debut record, but just an incredible record overall. And he's had some weird left turns in his career as a musician. If you listen to any of the stuff that Rob Zombie is putting out now, it's kind of off the wall. I still enjoy it, but I enjoy it in a much different way than I enjoy old school Rob Zombie up until about Educated Horses. And then from there, it kind of just gets a little wonky and a little bit weird. But The Sinister Urge, again, turning 25 years old this year, which sounds ridiculous to me, but it's not a record. It's a record that feels like a product of its time, capitalizing on the industrial sound of the late 90s and early 2000s, capitalizing on the popularity of nu metal in the late 90s and early 2000s. But when you think of the songs that are on Hellbilly Deluxe, or excuse me, on The Sinister Urge, this one really stood out. And on a personal level, I used to go CD shopping. I am of that age. I loved going CD shopping on Tuesdays for new releases. And there were certain bands and certain artists I was not allowed to listen to as a kid, but Rob Zombie was not on that list. Because a lot of his music, I'm not going to say it was goofy. It's goofy now. But I mean, he was a serious artist, but there was nothing, that my parents were overly concerned about. The Sinister Urge was the first physical CD from Rob Zombie I ever owned. I found it at a store. I do not remember which store, because we would hit multiple every single Tuesday when new releases would come out. And I put this CD into the CD player in the car, and it was incredible. And then I went back and bought Hellbilly Deluxe not too long after that, and owned both of them and played them interchangeably. So interchangeably that I have a hard time sometimes. I had to look up the set list for this record, because I get songs from both of these records confused as far as which one was on which record. Now, the first song that I heard from The Sinister Urge, I heard on the radio. Then I heard it because I bought the CD. And then I heard it in a weird spot. And that was the song Never Gonna Stop, which is a fun song, almost kind of a dance song in some aspects, with a really cool little guitar riff over the top of it. I mentioned professional wrestler Edge, Adam Copeland, using Metalingus for a long, long time before the end of his career, which, I mean, is the end of his career has happened and then unhappened, and he's working again. But Metalingus has been kind of synonymous with Edge as a professional wrestler. For a brief period before he picked that song, he came out to Never Gonna Stop. And there's a lot of people who probably don't remember that, but that's the truth. He did. And I remember the first time that he did it, it was kind of a weird, like, wait, we're using Rob Zombie? We're using Rob Zombie as an entrance song? Like, okay, cool. I don't know why you're using that. You're not going back to the White Zombie days and using Thunder Kiss or something like that. More Human Than Human sounded a lot like the ECW entrance song, so there was already that kind of in play. But it's the first track that I still think of to this day when I think of the Sinister Urge. The only really commercial single that was released was Demon Speeding. And I don't remember, I don't think Demon Speeding is the opener, but it's either, I think it's probably track 1 or 2 on the record. It's a good song. It's not a song that I picked as a standout track. I think it's a fine song. If you looked at me and you told me that your favorite Rob Zombie song is Demon Speeding, I'm going to look at you and be like, I kind of respect it that you picked that song, because there's songs that he has that are much more popular than that one. But okay, cool. You can make a case for that. It's not my favorite Rob Zombie song, but you can make a case for it. The songs that I have chosen as my standout tracks, my 2 favorite songs on this record, the songs Feel So Numb and Scum of the Earth. Compositionally, they're similar. They're fast, they're simple songs. A lot of his music is, but they're songs that are, in my opinion, they're evergreen songs. At any point, if somebody puts on Scum of the Earth by Rob Zombie, I'm gonna listen to it. It's a song I'm not gonna skip. At any point, if you put on Feel So Numb by Rob Zombie, it's a song that I'm gonna listen to. Even, and this might sound weird to a lot of Rob Zombie fans, even if Dragula comes on, even if Living Dead Girl comes on, like, there's just times I don't want to listen to them. There's just times I'm just like, I mean, okay, like, yeah, they're good songs. I love those songs. Don't get me wrong, but there's just times I'm not really feeling it. Feel So Numb has never been that way for me. Scum of the Earth has never been that way for me, and so I come back to those songs a lot more than I even come back to Dragula or to Living Dead Girl or to some of the other songs that Rob Zombie's career is kind of known for. So those were, I really wanted an excuse to highlight a record for its 25th anniversary, and that's what I'm doing there. And I also wanted a reason to talk about this next, the movie that we're going to talk about in Horror Corner, because it has another connection. We're connecting all kinds of dots today on the OSG show. We're connecting weird professional wrestling tie-ins between 2 different records. We're going to connect a movie to all of it. We're going to do a lot of things. We still have more show to go, so stick around for Horror Corner right after this on the Orange Suit Guy show. Well, you know what that noise means. It's time for the Horror Corner. We're back to talk a random horror movie here on the Orange Suit Guy show. And I guess I shouldn't say this one's random, because this one became strangely calculated. So I didn't anticipate, and I didn't really want to double up on a person for both Orange Jams and for the Horror Corner. And then I started listening through the whole of The Sinister Urge by Rob Zombie again, and I got to the last track on that record. And the last track on that record is the title track to the movie that we are talking about today, which is the movie House of 1,000 Corpses, the debut directorial effort from Rob Zombie as a filmmaker. And in all honesty, I mean, the track on the record goes on entirely too long. There's a lot of empty space, and then a hidden track at the end. You can skip it. It's just kind of there. But the whole of that song, one, stands on its own as a really good song. If Rob Zombie just wanted to tell the story of the Firefly family through a song, 10 out of 10, he nailed it. But it also does a really good job of kind of setting the tone for the vibe of the movie. So when this movie came out in 2003, I had definitely it took me a little while to see it. I said earlier in the episode that there were people that I was not allowed to listen to the music of. Rob Zombie was not on that list. I was allowed to listen to Rob Zombie. I was certainly not allowed to watch House of a Thousand Corpses when it came out. And if you know all of the stories that came out of production of this movie and all of the issues that Rob Zombie even had getting this movie put into theaters, it would blow your mind if you haven't heard some of those things. But at some point in my life, and I don't remember when, it was probably around 2008 or 2009 because I remember the house that I lived in at the time. My family went and rented a DVD copy of this movie, and my parents watched it. I wasn't allowed to watch it, but they went and watched this movie just because they rented the DVD of it. And I caught little snippets of audio to it, but I was in my room. Well, I don't know if my parents realized at the time, and they don't watch this show, so it's fine. I had a little portable DVD player that I kept in my room, and that night I managed to get my hands on the DVD. I think they had left it out after they were done watching it, and so I get my hands on this movie. I take it back to my room. I put it in the portable DVD player. I put some headphones in, and for the first time in my life, I watch House of a Thousand Corpses. I don't rewatch movies very often. I'm just someone that once I've seen a movie, even if it's the greatest movie I've ever seen, I usually just don't watch it a second time. I just don't have that same level of interest in it. I've gone back a couple of times and watched House of a Thousand Corpses just because of how unique of a movie it is. I'm not going to say it's a great movie, but there's a lot of stylistic choices that Rob Zombie makes, and he loved the old school, kind of the golden age of horror cinema. And there's a lot of kind of tributes to that, callbacks to that, stylistically that are really, really interesting. The movie, it has the reputation for just being vulgar and full of gore and violence. And if you watch Rob Zombie movies, that's kind of par for the course, right? There's a lot of violence, there's a lot of blood, there's a lot of profanity. And this is where that all started. And all those things are true about House of a Thousand Corpses. But where I defend the movie is it's more than that. There are movies that you'll watch that's the whole point. All we want to do is off people in these grotesque ways. There's no story being told. There's no cohesion to it. And there's actually a compelling story that's happening around the Firefly family. He builds technically a trilogy out of these characters. I'm still salty about that because the third movie did not need to happen. But built two really good movies between House of a Thousand Corpses and Lords of Salem that tell the story of the Firefly family and do it really, really well. And they all have unique characteristics when you talk about all of the different individual members of the Firefly family. I think that Otis Firefly is one of my favorite horror movie characters. I love Otis. Baby, I mean, he wanted an opportunity to get his wife in the movie, but Baby is a compelling character in her own right because she's psychotic. Mama Firefly, Tiny, you talk about any of them, like they're incredible. And I'm not even naming all of them, but my favorite character from the movie happens in the very first scene. He's introduced in the first scene. He's the first main character that you see, and that's Captain Spaulding, played by Sid Haig, because the opening sequence of the movie is really funny. It's grotesque, dark humor, but it's funny. And so it kind of eases you in, and it lets you see this unusual, unique dynamic that the Firefly family has with Captain Spaulding, because he's not related to them, but he's a connection of theirs. He's a friend of theirs. He's an enabler of theirs, and tells the story of Dr. Satan, tells the story of, all of these things that you should avoid. And, Rainn Wilson and all of his friends are idiots in this movie. Rainn Wilson turns into Fish Boy because he gets his comeuppance. And even the kills in the movie are incredibly unique. Everything about the movie is incredibly unique. And so, yes, it's grotesque. Yes, it's deserving kind of the mixed reviews. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and it gets really intense at different points, right? It certainly lives up to the reputation that it has, but it's a movie that I think is really enjoyable even because of that. The part of the movie that I don't like, unfortunately, and I don't like to poke fun at these different movies, but movies aren't perfect. The character of Dr. Satan is built up and built up and built up and built up through the run of this movie. When they reveal Dr. Satan, I was incredibly underwhelmed. Unbelievably underwhelmed. And I just thought, man, there's something missing here. I don't know what it is, but there's just something about Dr. Satan that I just don't like. This just kind of felt flat for me. Felt like it could have been a much bigger moment, and that's where I kind of count off a little bit. I mean, they even set it up going down into these catacombs, and the setup is incredible. And I don't think, and there are some people that I know that love this movie and they love the Dr. Satan reveal, and that's fine. You can have that opinion, but it just didn't work for me. To see him there and see his connection to the Firefly family. But then the ending is what you would expect, and getting the sequel, I'm usually not a fan of just kind of, I think, shoehorning a sequel in there, but there was certainly more to the Firefly story that needed to be told, and Lords of Salem did a really good job of that. We're not going to talk about Three from Hell on this show. It didn't need to exist. It didn't happen. I've blocked it out of my mind. It's not there. It's gone. But as a standalone movie, it does the job that it's supposed to do. It does the job that it intended to do. And even though, in my opinion, it has a flat reveal at the end of this character, everything else I think went really, really well. There was a lot of correct decisions, in my opinion, made with this movie. And so it's a 7 out of 10 movie for me. I'm a fan of House of a Thousand Corpses. I really like it. And it has propelled an incredibly successful career for Rob Zombie as continuing in his music run, and now as a movie maker as well. And I've watched a lot of Rob Zombie stuff because of it. So I appreciate it. If you don't mind the shock value, if you don't mind the gore and the vulgarity and the profanity and things like that, let yourself enjoy House of a Thousand Corpses one time. It's not, one of those crazy, shocking for the sake of shocking movies. It's got a story. It's got cohesion. I'm a fan. House of a Thousand Corpses gets a 7 out of 10, and that is going to do it for the return episode. We're finally back here of the Orange Suit Guy show, the July 4th spectacular. Again, what better way to celebrate America's 250th birthday than by getting here and talking some horror movies, talking some music, talking a little bit of old school basketball, and just being able to be back in the chair wearing the orange suit. It's been phenomenal to be back with you guys. I look forward to making more of these, and be on the lookout, because I've always got stories to tell. There's always games to talk about. There's always music coming out. There's always movies being made. And I want to be here to tell as many stories as I can. So if there's one thing that you remember from me, remember it for the rest of time. Life is always better in an orange suit. We'll see you next time.